to the second box on your paper, okay? So we're changing it from standard form to unit form, all right? So I'm going to pull a stick here. Isaac, how do you write 1 5/10 as just tenths? What do you think? Jacob?
150.
No? Good try. Alexis?
15.
Just 15. So 15 tenths. Now here's what John said today. He said, okay, I know the trick. You just take out the decimal.
Yep.
Is he right?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a reason why we're talking about this. So when we have tenths place, the last digit I write is going to be in the tenths place. So to change it to tenths, you just take out the decimal.
It's like the sprint.
Sort of, yes. So go ahead and change all of those to tenths. And check yours with mine. Oh, I'm putting the decimal in. Someone stop me. Okay.
Just check it with your paper.
Yeah, don't check yours with mine until I have it right. Okay, so we're going to use that here in a few minutes on the lesson. So let's go ahead and do this application problem. Now, I know you don't have a lot of room, so we're going to write small. But let me read it first. It says, Craig, Randy, Charlie, and Sam ran in a 5K race on Saturday. They were the top 4 finishers. Here are their race times. Craig, 25.9 minutes. Charlie, 32.28 minutes. Randy, 32.2 minutes. Sam, 25.85 minutes. Who won first place? Who won second place? Third and fourth. Now let's talk about something. Raise your hand if you've ever been to a track meet or a cross-country meet. You watch someone run, okay? Put your hands down. Okay? What? No, I don't need you to tell me. I want to know if you've ever watched a race on TV, if you have never been to one for real. Anybody watch one on TV? Okay, so tell me a little bit about, now, this is the 21st century, right? So they have timers that are electronic. They take pictures of the runners, and then they know exactly how long it took the runner to run, okay? Just a second. Here in Hugoton, we have real life people that run a stopwatch, and they push the button on top when the person goes across the finish line, okay? And then they send their scores up to the press box. People in the press box then have to determine who got first, second, third, fourth, and sometimes they go all the way to 6th place, okay? So this whole knowing your decimal place value could come in handy if you're one of those people that are timing a race or figuring out who got first, because you don't want to mess up on your decimals, do you?
No.
Okay? Most of the time on a race, they take it out to the hundredths. And we're used to the hundredths, aren't we? Okay? So, Hudson, I'm going to let you tell me that story in a minute, but right now, I want to ask a question. So when that person comes across the finish line and they're in first place, do they have the highest time or the lowest time?
Lowest time.
Lowest time. So let's establish that first. Since we're not using our place value chart on the iPads today, I'm going to show you a quick, easy way to do it. So we're going to write down the numbers, but you've got to line them up. So 25.9, and just underneath each other. And when you line them up, see how that 8 is sticking out?
Yeah.
Okay? Once you get those all lined up, you could actually draw some lines, can't you?
Yeah.
And then it's just a little bit easier to see it. You might have to, once you draw your lines, you might have to make your decimal just a little bit bigger so you can see it better. So there's my little mini place value chart. What do you think? Okay, go ahead and get that place value chart created. Now that you've got your little mini place value chart, we're going to find, which number are we going to find, the smallest or the largest?
Smallest.
Smallest. Why are we finding the smallest?
So you can determine who got first place.
Ooh, I like your word determine. Very good. So out of the numbers, it looks to me like your 25s. You're going to make a decision between the 25s, aren't you? Okay? So are the 2s the same?
Yes.
Are the 5s the same?
Yes.
What about the 9 and the 8?
No.
Which one's smaller?
8.
Cross it off. Now you have to go back. Who ran it in 25.85?
Sam.
So Sam got first. So I'm just going to put Sam, and then I'm just going to put a first beside it. So now I know that my other 25 would be what place? Second. Who ran that? No? Craig. 25.9. So go ahead and cross off 25.9, and then Craig got second. Okay. Now we have our third and fourth place finishers, don't we?
Yep.
So let's compare. Are the 3s the same?
Yes.
Are the 2s the same?
Yes.
2s the same?
Yes.
8 and what would be here?
0.
Okay, so I'm going to put a 0 there. Which one's smaller, the 8 or the 0?
The 0.
So cross that one off. Who ran it in 32.2? Randy. He got third. And then it was really cute. John said, and we automatically know who got fourth place. Do we?
Yep.
Who was it?
Charlie.
Very good. So that's a real world situation for needing to know your hundredths place value.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at this. Now, problem 1, we're rounding decimals right now. Problem 1 is going to start us out with the concept, but we're not going to round in the decimal place value yet, okay? So it says strategically decompose 155 using multiple units to round to the nearest 10 and nearest 100. That makes no sense, does it?
Nope.
I'm going to show you what it means, okay? And can we do something? Can we change this to 158 instead?
Yep.
Okay? I think that number would work better for these purposes. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to write this on the place value chart. So I'm going to put 1 in the hundreds place, 5 in the tens, and 8 in the ones. Then I'm going to write it in unit form. So I'm going to put 100 5 tens and 8 ones. And that's unit form. All I did was write 1 and then the hundreds place, 5 and then tens, 8 and then ones. Okay? So now I want to know if there's another way to write 158 in unit form. What if I got rid of the hundreds place? Where would I put the 1?
5 or the 1. 15. Yeah, right there.
Okay, so 15 tens, is that the same thing as 150?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to write the 15 in the tens place, the 8 in the ones. You don't have to erase up here, just let me do it, okay? So you probably know what's coming now, don't you?
Yep.
What if I got rid of the tens place?
You would have 158 ones.
I would have 158 ones. Okay? So then I would write them all in the ones place.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. So this is what it means to strategically decompose
Okay.
using multiple units. It just means let's write it a different way.
Okay.
Remember when we were doing unit form and we would rather write 158 ones?
Yeah.
Move over there in that empty chair. Yeah. Okay, so I would rather write 158 ones than 100 5 tens, 8 ones, wouldn't you? It's just faster. So why do we need to know this? That's the question. I'm getting ready to answer it. You need to know unit form for the bottom of a vertical number line. Vertical number lines are what we are doing in 5th grade. And I don't love them, but that's okay. We will learn an easier way very soon. I still need to teach you this, okay? So, I believe it was Eli said, oh, Mrs. Hiddle taught us this. She said something about 0 through 4 and 5 through 9 and what you do with the numbers. And so, I know where she got that idea because she knows the same rap that I know. Did you know I know how to rap?
Oh yeah, you told us yesterday.
Okay, so help me get a beat here. Now I'm getting ready to embarrass myself, so I might cut this out of the video. I don't know. Okay, so help me get a beat. I'll start you. Not too fast. Find the place value and circle that digit. Move to the right and underline. Get it? 0 to 4. Circle stays the same. 5 to 9. Add 1 is the game. Now flex your muscles like a hero. Digits to the right change to 0. All the other digits stay the same. You're a winner in the rounding game. What do you think?
I like it.
You like it? Okay. I'm going to teach that to you later. If I taught it to you today, it would be too much information for you to remember combined with the vertical number line, okay? So, but I just gave you a little preview of what's to come. It's going to get easier than it will be today, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and I'll show you how I teach kids how to do this. So the first thing we need to do is we need to write the actual number down that we're rounding. So that's why I put an A here. So go ahead and write an A there. What is the actual number that I'm rounding? 158. Okay? Then underneath the A, you're going to write an M. Because the midpoint is going to help us. And I'm going to show you how that works. So just write an M and we'll come back to that. The directions say to round it to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100. We're just going to do the nearest 10 for right now. So put the word 10 above the first number line. Okay? We're rounding it to the nearest 10. Now, I probably should have had you keep your highlighters, so you might just have to put a box around it. But go ahead and highlight the tens place where we have 2 numbers in the tens place. And you can just put a box around it, okay? That number tells me what to write on the bottom of my vertical number line. So I'm going to write 15 tens. So go ahead and write 15 tens, unit form. So write that now. Then you're going to tell me what that is in standard form.
115.
150.
Oh, 50.
Yeah, 150. Because anything times 10 add a 0 to the end?
Yep.
Okay, what comes after 15 when you're counting?
16.
So write 16 tens at the top.
Okay.
And 16 tens would be what number in standard form?
160.
160. Try not to say and. Okay, now this is where the midpoint comes in. Cesar, what's halfway between 150 and 160?
155.
Very good. So that's your midpoint. You do not have to write it in unit form. Everyone write your midpoint. Okay? So now I'm going to line up the digits in my midpoint carefully right below my actual number.
Okay.
Do you know what's coming? Are the ones the same?
Yes.
Are the 5s the same?
Yes.
What about here?
No.
Which one's larger?
8.
Circle it. So if my actual number is more than my midpoint, I'm going to round it up to 160. There's one more step. I have to write 158 on the number line. Do you think I'm going to write it above the midpoint or below the midpoint? Above, and it doesn't matter where, just stick it up there. That's a lot to remember. Okay, so now we'll go down and we'll do one with decimal place value. And we'll keep practicing, but we are going through all these steps. So let's move to the next one. Whoops. It did. Problem 2. The only difference is we've got decimal place value now. So start by getting your decimals on the place value chart. And this says strategically decompose 1.57 to round to the nearest whole and the nearest tenth. So right here I want to put the word whole. And right here I want to put the word tenth. Okay, so 1 and 57/100. So that's going to be 1, isn't it? Go ahead and write this down. 5 in the what place?
Tenths.
Tenths, good. And 7 in the hundredths. So go ahead and write that down. And you won't have to erase it and move it across. So I've got 1 and 57/100. 1, 5/10, 7/100. Okay, now, what happens if I get rid of the 1s?
15/10.
15/10. So I'll put the 15. Do I move the 7 at all?
No.
No. Okay. And then what happens if I get rid of the tenths?
157 hundredths.
Very good. Okay. So there's a couple more things we need to write. Don't we need actual number here?
Yes.
Okay, get your actual number there. What is the actual number that we're rounding?
1.57.
Good. Write it in your best handwriting so you can line up the digits here in a little bit. And then we've got the midpoint. And we don't know it yet, do we? Okay, so I've got to, I'm going to get my highlighter. I'm going to highlight the whole, we're rounding to the nearest whole.
Okay.
What place value do you think that is?
1.
Cooper's on a roll today. So this 1 is going to be the bottom number on my vertical number line. I'm writing it in unit form. 1, 1 equals 1. Now what comes after 1?
2.
So write 2 1s in unit form. And don't forget to write it in standard form beside. Okay, I'm going to pull a stick for this. Time to find the midpoint. Diamine. What's halfway between 1 and 2? Think back to your sprint. 1.5. Okay, write down 1.5. So now I know my midpoint. I'm going to line this up. I'm going to line the decimal up, the digits up, and it looks like I'm probably going to have to fill in with a 0, aren't I? Okay, so you have that done?
Mm-hmm.
So you already know which way it rounds, don't you?
Yeah.
Which way?
So,
Up or down?
up.
Okay, let's see. So are the 1s the same?
Yes.
Are the 5s the same?
Yes.
What about here?
No.
Which one's larger?
7.
So the actual is larger. That means it will round to the number 2. 2 is going to be your answer. Where do I write the actual? Above or below the midpoint? Above. Okay, let's try it again. So now I'm going to need to round to the nearest tenths place. So I'll get a different color of a highlighter. I'm going to highlight the tenths place right here. So what number goes on the bottom of my vertical number line? 15 what? 15 tenths. Write it in unit form. And then we have to figure out what it is in standard form. So what do you think it is in standard form? 1.5. So write it in standard form. What comes after 15?
16.
16 tenths. Write it down. And that's going to be 1 point, what? 6. Okay. So now for the midpoint. I'm going to erase this 0, or this circle real quick. Okay, so you've got your actual on there, right?
Yep.
Okay, we need to find the midpoint, and that is Alexis. Now remember our trick from the sprint? Copy this first number down and add a what to
5.
it? So Alexis, what is it? Okay, 1 and 55 hundredths. So that's what you write here. Okay, so are the ones the same?
Yep.
5s?
Yes.
7 and 5? Which one's larger?
7.
So the actual number is still larger.
Yep.
Okay, that's an introduction to it. We'll practice some more of those tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
Good job. Now, make sure you're... All right, boys and girls, I want to ask you, what is the actual number I am rounding?
4.381.
Okay, how do you say that number?
4,381,000.
Okay, write that down as your actual. And then right underneath it, you're going to write your midpoint. Okay? Now, I want to put 4 and 381 thousandths on the top of the place value chart. And then I want to write it out in unit form, mostly in case you were gone yesterday. Okay? So that is 4 what?
300.
No, 4 what? 4 ones. Good. 3 what? 3 tenths. 8.
Tenths. Or hundreds.
And I'm going to abbreviate that because it looks like I'm going to run out of room. And 1,000. Okay, so now I want to ask the question, what would it look like if I took away the ones?
43 tenths.
43 tenths. I'd have 43 tenths. Okay, so let's write 43 tenths. Did that, oh, I wrote 48. Did the 8 or the 1 change up here?
No.
Okay, so what would it look like if I took away the tenths?
438.
Okay, so I would have 438 what? Hundredths. And my 1,000th would stay the same, right?
Yep.
And what would happen, you know what's coming, don't you?
Yeah.
If I took away the hundredths.
4,000.
Oh, wow, 4,381 thousandths. Okay. All right, now, does anyone remember why we fill out this chart? It looks like an upside down staircase, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what does anyone remember why we fill out this chart? Well, you know, I've been getting that kind of answer. Now, give me, you're close when you say the midpoint. It has something to do, it has something to do with the vertical number lines for sure. What does it help me figure out on this vertical number line? What I put on the bottom. Very good. Okay. Let's figure out what we're rounding to. It says the nearest 10, 1, 10th, and 100th. So up above, just write those words. 10, 1, 10th. Oh, I want to do that one differently. We can write that smaller, can't we?
Yeah.
We can write it like this. 10th and 100th. Okay. So now, I'm going to round to the nearest tens place. So I'll take my highlighter. Whoops, there's nothing to highlight. What number is actually there?
0.
0. So what will go on the bottom of my number line?
0.
Tens. 0 tens. Now, the thing that kids forget to do is write this in unit form, then equals, then standard form. You have to have two forms, okay? What comes after 0?
1.
So 110. And how am I going to write that in standard form, Jaden? How do I write 110? Do I just write a 10? Yeah. And if I had two tens, what would I write?
20.
20, okay. So halfway, Jaden, halfway between 0 and 10, what do you have?
5.
Okay, write it down. Remember, your midpoint does not need unit form,
Okay.
just standard form. So now I'm going to write 5 here because I know my midpoint. I don't really need to write the decimal, but I'm going to need it later, so I put it on there anyway. Okay? So which one's larger, my actual or my midpoint? Midpoint. So circle the midpoint. If the midpoint is larger, that means my actual comes below the midpoint.
Yep.
And I will circle the bottom number. Okay, so here's what we need to erase. We need to erase the midpoint right here. And I need to highlight something. If I'm going to the nearest 1, what place value should I highlight?
4.
No, I should highlight the 4, good, okay? So I have 4 1s, and that equals 4. What comes after 4?
5.
5 1s equals 5. Halfway between 4 and 5, Miguel. 4.5, is that what he said?
Yeah.
Okay, 4.5, good. All right, so now up here, right under my actual, lined up as best I can, I'm going to write 4.5. Which one's larger?
5.
The midpoint. Circle the midpoint, or circle the 5. So if the midpoint's larger, that means my actual is where?
Below.
Below the midpoint, 4.381. Okay, let's take a look at to the nearest tenths. So what should I highlight here?
3. Or 43.
43 tenths,
Tenths.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what goes on the bottom?
43 tenths.
43 tenths. And see, the thing is, when I change this to unit form or standard form, it's going to be a decimal. So I want you to look back up at the top. Where was the decimal originally? Between what two numbers? 4 and 3. Is the decimal going to move? Am I multiplying or dividing? No, I'm just rounding. So the decimal will stay where it is. So it's going to stay between the 4 and the 3. Okay? So what comes after 43?
44.
44. Equals, and now where do you think the decimal will be? Pulling a stick. Cesar, now where do you think the decimal will be for 44 tenths?
Between the one.
Yep, between the fours. I'm going to write it up there to keep it out of the way. Okay, so now I have to figure out my midpoint, don't I? All right, and did you notice I'm only erasing one part of that? I left the 4 point on there on my midpoint. Okay, so the midpoint between 4 and 3/10 and 4 and 4/10, Diego.
43.5.
Well, the decimal doesn't move, so 4 point,
4.35.
good. So I will write 3/5 here. Please don't skip any steps. Okay? All right. So now, which one's larger, Jimena? The actual or the midpoint? The actual. In fact, I can circle the 8. Why don't you not circle it? That way it won't mess you up for the next problem. But if you were doing this on an assignment, you could circle the 8, couldn't you? So if the actual is larger than the midpoint, where do I write it? Above the midpoint. So 4.381. I should have that memorized by now, shouldn't I? Okay. How you doing? Kind of getting a little easier?
Yeah.
So let's erase the 5 there. And I'll just erase this. Okay. So the next one is to the nearest hundredth. So how many hundredths do I have?
438.
So where does that number go? Someone besides Cooper.
Oh, sorry.
On the bottom.
Bottom of the number line. So 438 what?
100.
Hundredths. Good. Okay, thanks Cooper. You can answer again now.
Okay.
Okay, and that's a long word. So, will my decimal still be between the 4 and the 3?
Yes.
It will. So 4.38. Okay, what comes after 438? 439. You can abbreviate hundredths if you want. Did you already do that?
Yeah.
I know. And will my decimal still be between the 4 and the 3?
Yes.
Yes, it will. Okay, so the midpoint, Alexis, what's the midpoint here?
4 and 385.
85 what?
100.
Thousands? Thousands. So 4.385, 4 and 385 thousandths. So I'm going to write that right here for my midpoint, line it up. So now, which one's larger, Miranda, the midpoint or the actual? The midpoint. So if the midpoint's larger, where do I write my actual? Below. So it's getting a little easier, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to do is I want to skip to problem 5 because 4 is a lot like the one we just did. Okay? So let's skip to problem 5. And don't worry, we won't do all of these. Or we might. We'll see. So let's get it on the place value chart. 99 and 799 thousandths. That's a lot of digits.
Yeah.
It's not that huge of a number though. It's not even 100.
It's a lot of nuts.
And then we've got the, let's do the 10, the 1, tenths, hundredths. Now, do you think you can decompose that number without me erasing up at the top?
Yes. Yes.
So 99 and 799 thousandths. Okay, so if I get rid of the tens,
99 ones.
I'll have 99 ones, and the rest of these don't move, do they? Are you already done decomposing it? And if I get rid of the ones, how many tenths will I have? 997 tenths. Oops, that's supposed to be a 9. Okay, and if I get rid of the tenths, 9,979 hundredths and 9 thousandths. And that's good enough for now, okay?
Okay.
So let's take a look at it, and I think it's going to keep getting easier for you. All right, so if I round to the nearest 10, what goes on the bottom of my number line?
9.
9 what?
Tens.
9 tens. So how do I write 9 tens in standard form, Cooper?
9 tens, 90.
90, okay. And what comes after 9, boys and girls?
91. 10.
Well, counting by 10. No, what comes after 9?
10.
10. So 10 tens. And you're right, that's 100. Okay, now, Hudson, what's a midpoint? Halfway between 90 and 100. 95, good. Okay, so can I write the midpoint up here now? Yes. And do I need to write the decimal? I mean, I'm going to need it later, so why don't I just leave it on there? Okay, sounds good. So now, I'm going to pull a stick. Which one is larger, Isaac? The actual or the midpoint?
The actual.
Okay. So if my actual is larger, you guys don't have to circle that because it's just going to mess up your paper. If the actual is larger, where do I write it? Above or below the midpoint?
Above.
Above. So 99.799. That's a lot of nines. I'm getting confused. What?
You could do like A for above.
I could do A for above, but I think actual might work better because sometimes the midpoint is above. Okay? All right. So there's the nearest 10. Let's try the nearest 1. I think the 1's is the easiest. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so what will I highlight here? How many 1's do I need? On the bottom of my number? 99. Good. 99 ones. What comes after 99?
100.
100. Okay, I'm going to pull a stick for the midpoint. Ruby, what's halfway between 99 and 100?
99.5.
You got it. Very good. Okay, so now my midpoint, I guess I better erase this, huh?
Yeah.
99.5.
Actual is
Okay, so take a look at it. The 9's are the same, the 9's are the same. What about the 7 and the 5?
no, the actual is higher.
Okay, so if the actual's higher, where do I write it?
Above.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How many of you think I'm going to be writing it above all the rest of the way?
Me.
Okay, why do you think that, Jacob?
Because 99 cannot be 99.
Well, but my midpoint could change. My midpoint could be 9975. So how do I know that it's going to go up every time? JJ,
5 is lower than 9.
you got it.
9 is
What
higher.
number do I put at the end of my midpoint every
5.
single time? 5. Are these all higher than 5?
Yes.
Yes. When I teach you the rap, it will be much easier to do. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do the tenths and the hundredths. We have plenty of time. It's only 11:22, and then when we're done with these two, I'll have you do lesson 7 Tower of Power. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at to the nearest tenth. If I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, what goes on the bottom of my number line, Jacob?
Bottom of your number line, 99.
No? You're close. What did I just highlight?
9997.
997 what?
Tenths.
Tenths. Very good. And this is where we get a little confused. So where is the decimal to start with?
Between 9 and 7.
Between the 9 and the 7. So does the decimal move on this? No, we're not multiplying or dividing, are we?
No.
We're rounding. Okay, so 99.7. What comes after 997?
998.
Okay. Where's my 8? There it is. All right, I'm going to pull a stick for this. So how do I write that in standard form, JJ?
998 tens,
Yeah, tenths. Now, where do I put the decimal?
in between the 9 and the 8.
Very good. Okay, the midpoint here. And then I want to talk about the track meet from yesterday,
Oh,
or
yeah.
the 5K race, okay? Zadie, what's the midpoint?
997.5.
99 point.
7.
You had the right digits. Don't move your decimal, okay? Let's go ahead and finish rounding this one to the nearest tenth. And then I want to talk about the 5K race. So my midpoint here is what? 7.5? Okay. Who said that it's always going to end with a 5?
JJ.
JJ, was he right?
Yes.
Is my actual still higher?
Yes.
Okay, so 99.799, and it rounds to 99.8. Now, back to the 5K race. What if 2 people tied on their time, okay?
You'll have to see who did the less more, like see who first went first.
Okay, but the timer, they put the button down at the same time and the same numbers are on there. What do you think? Huh? You could round it. That might be a time when you might need to round it. Rock, paper, scissors? Yeah. Yeah. Those electronic timers that we talked about yesterday, they're probably
Or flip a
going to figure out a tie. Hopefully.
Or flip a coin.
Or you might have to flip a coin. Okay?
Yeah.
But that's a time when rounding might come in handy, like in a track meet. Okay? Or did we talk about the long jump? What if you tied and how far you jumped? Did we talk about that?
You measure how far you jumped.
Well, they do that. They measure how far. What if they got 21 feet and 5 inches for 2 people?
Like at the end, how far?
Well, no, it's not how far you land out there. What do you think?
Maybe like how they landed.
No, good try. You guys you're thinking good today. How many jumps do you think they get?
1.
Mhm.
2.
3.
They do?
Yeah. So now that you know they get to jump 3 times, how could you figure out a tie?
Whoever jumped the farthest on the last third one.
On their other jumps.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe on their second best jump. Okay? So what you're learning in math today, boys and girls, is going to apply for the rest of your life. Not only do we need decimals with money, right? But we found out yesterday we need decimals when we're timing people for running events.
Yeah.
And did we talk about what the 5K meant?
Yeah, 5 kilometers.
Kilometers, very good, very good. Okay, we're going to stop there. You've done an excellent job helping me with my recording.